our success rate for our founders is incredibly high. So just out there in the world, less than 3% of venture capital goes to women-led businesses, which is
crazy.
Tiny fraction. But 70% of our graduates successfully raise investment. So we are having a really, really good impact kind of at a grassroots level.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today's guest is Caroline, a tech lawyer, fintech founder and startup champion, currently co-founder of Hive Founders. Let's jump in. Hi Caroline, welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi Megan, thanks so much for having me.
Love it. Okay, I would love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's get right into it. Okay, first question. What's one legal risk that startups always underestimate?
Probably their intellectual property protection. They rarely start out properly thinking about how they're going to protect their IP and where it sits in the company, and it can get them into all sorts of trouble later on.
Okay. And then second question, how do you unplug after a long day?
Yoga. Always yoga. I've done yoga now for, I realised, 30 years.
Wow.
Which means that I should be better at it than I am.
Okay.
But it's the single thing that keeps me grounded.
Love it. What do you think is the best part about being a female founder?
The community that we have around us. Because it is so stupidly hard for us to be able to build anything and get access to capital and stuff.
Yeah.
What that does is it creates an incredible community of collaboration and crazy people all trying to do crazy things that really brings people together. And I love that.
Fourth question, if AI had a moral compass, what should be its true north?
Making sure that enough diverse voices and enough diverse content has gone into its build and use.
Into its training, right?
Training and also the applications that it's used for.
Okay.
So it's both. It's both input and output.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was your childhood dream job?
Two things. Show jumper.
Okay.
Loved horses when I was young. Oh my God, I loved horses.
Makes sense.
And then fashion designer.
Nice. A real mix. I like it.
Yeah, completely bizarre choices, actually.
Yeah.
Not good at either of them.
Yeah, well. What would you say is the most underrated legal skill in the tech world?
It's not even legal. I think you have to be extremely commercial, and I think you have to teach yourself how to build stuff. Okay. I think the best lawyers in tech are ones who care about the tech that is being built and actually are willing to go out and build stuff themselves, see how it all works.
Okay. What's most important today? Data ethics or cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity.
Okay. No questions.
From a commercial perspective. Data ethics, we've kind of maybe a bit late.
Okay. If you could meet anyone living or dead, who would it be and why?
I like really clever, witty people. So it will probably be some writers. It will probably be Dorothy Parker, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison. People that really think about the human condition, but think about it through language.
Very interesting. Number 9. What do you think is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
I think the hardest thing is it forces you to reckon with yourself all the time. I always call it like a crucible for self-development because it really shows up your weaknesses, your character traits, And so you have to actually reckon with yourself.
Like it. And then last question for the lightning round is, if you had to describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 emojis, what would they be and why?
The swearing one,
Okay.
because I swear all the time.
Strong start.
The roller coaster one. I bet
Okay.
everyone says the roller coaster one.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably like the community one, like one with people holding, the little lots of people together.
Oh, yeah. Got it. Lovely. And thank you so much for answering my lightning round questions. And let's move on to your journey, right? So you are British, grew up in the UK, and you are a lawyer. And what drew you to law? What was it a role model, lifestyle, a particular drama, TV series, movie?
That's a good question. No, it was that it was a stable job that paid reasonably well and I could use my brain in some way. So it was quite a pragmatic decision rather than anything else.
Okay, interesting. And so you currently work at head of legal at Garfield
Yes, Garfield
Smith?
Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, Garfield Smith Legal.
Which I thought was quite a funny name.
Well, that's his actual name.
Yeah,
So
I looked.
Yeah, so Garfield trained me when I was a junior lawyer. And so we've known one another for 20 years. And
Awesome.
This is his firm.
Yeah, so it is a law firm specializing in tech companies, I believe.
Yeah, so we cover tech and data. So our clients are primarily tech companies, creative, media, that kind of thing.
Okay, and the obvious question is, how much is AI a part of the conversation? Because it seems to be a part of every conversation at the moment. What else is important other than AI?
Okay, so if I kind of break down the work, so AI comes into, probably about 70-80% of conversations at the moment. So how do we use it safely? What are the risks? Even asking us things like, what tech stacks are best for different types of clients, right? Because when you're a startup versus an enterprise client, you're going to have a different tolerance to risk. You're going to have different approaches to using AI. So we actually have some of those kind of technical and commercial conversations as well as legal. So AI is a massive part. And then the rest of the work that we do tends to fall into kind of corporate and M&A, so investment rounds for startups and scale-ups, exits, so people selling their business. There's been quite a lot of that activity. Yeah. Then we do a lot of data protection work, so a ton of GDPR for clients, and that's clients globally. And then we do a lot of commercial work. So, and that can be anything. So for a lot of technology companies, it's going to be creating SaaS agreements. There's going to be IP issues to deal with. There's going to be some employment stuff. So it's a real mix of things for people.
Yeah, definitely a real mix of things. What would you say is like the most important thing? Most important aspect?
There's no single most important thing, but there's two sides to everything when you look at legal. There's the compliance side, so managing risk. And then there's the commercial side. So how do you best protect your business, but also grow it? And so you need to have both of those things in place. And the best lawyers will help you do both of those. They're not just going to look at everything from a risk perspective. Yeah. How do you minimize and reduce and eliminate risk? But they're also going to look at it in the context of, here's what you're trying to achieve as a business. Let us help you figure out how to get there better.
Okay. And that's really interesting. But switching gears a little bit now. So you founded a business called Life Ties in 2015, I believe. What did you learn from founding this business?
I learned, so building a startup from scratch is a ridiculously difficult thing to do, actually. That the 0 to 1 piece is really, really hard, and the scaling piece is really hard. Yeah. What did I learn? I learned that, so we actually launched in 2018. So we kind of had the idea back in 2015, but the tech wasn't ready then. We didn't really have open banking properly at that point. So a lot of the things that we wanted to do weren't available to us. So we kind of had to put it on ice. And then 2018, when we launched it, felt like a good time to be bringing a consumer fintech to market. But actually, with hindsight, I think we've missed that part of the cycle. I think
Okay.
we're a little bit too late. And a lot of people don't understand about startups is often timing plays a really, really important part in
Crucial
what you're
role, yeah.
doing. It's really critical and people sometimes overlook it. And so you can either be ahead of your time, and in some
Mhm.
ways we were ahead of our time in what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And now the AI and LLMs have got to where they've got to, we would be able to build what we wanted to do much easier now,
Mhm.
ironically. So in some ways we're a bit ahead, and in some ways we're a little bit behind the curve because we
Yeah.
wanted to build a massive consumer platform. And actually that window for building consumer tech of that type
Yeah.
was closing, but you don't always realize it at the time. So our timing was off. Our business model was off. Our business model was an aggregator model and very much relied on volume. But to
Mhm.
get to volume at consumer, you need a lot of capital. And we
Yeah.
couldn't raise enough capital. So effectively, we weren't really in the race.
Mhm.
And I think those are the types of things as a first time founder that you don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
And so there are things that I would have done very, very differently, knowing what I know now, having gone through it.
What are those things? Tell us a few
I would have
examples.
raised more capital. I would have built in the US, and I
Okay.
would have had a different business model.
Interesting. And let's now talk about you co-founding Hive Founders, right, in 2017, which focuses on helping women-led startups succeed, right? So tell us how it works. Tell us about these amazing female founders.
Yeah, so Hive, interestingly, so I am a co-founder of Hive as it is now, but I didn't set up the community. So
Mhm.
Hive was a community that I relied on when I was an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
I was building a fintech back in 2018, and at that time
Mhm.
there were so few women building fintechs. There were so few female founders generally. I'd go to
Yeah.
various startup events, and I pretty much know all the other women there because there weren't that many of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Hive was an incredible resource for me because when you're a
Mhm.
founder, you are always on and you always have to present a really, really good face to the world. Everything is
Yes.
brilliant, everything is working, you're
Mhm.
flying,
Mhm.
everything is going completely to plan. Um,
Yeah.
and that gets exhausting. It's really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
exhausting to always be on, always be pitching, always be selling.
Yeah.
And Hive was brilliant because it was a bunch of other crazy women, just like me, wanting to build venture scale businesses, right? So we all had massive
Yep.
ambition.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was a place where we could all be honest with one another about the challenges of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges that everybody spoke about was how hard it was for us to raise investment. And I
Mhm.
was able to raise pre seed and seed, wasn't able to raise Series A. We didn't hit the metrics to hit a Series A. But I had in that community a bunch of other women who had also raised money.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do in 2022 was to take everything that we had learned, because we'd learned a lot and it had been brutal and
Yeah.
it had been really hard, but we understood the rules of the game
Yeah.
having done it. And so we decided to create an accelerator program to teach the next wave of female
Mhm.
entrepreneurs everything that we'd learned, everything we wish we'd known about
Yeah.
how to raise capital.
Interesting. Interesting. And that's basically what Hive does, isn't it? So it helps and kind of gives that community to those female founders to kind of boost them up.
Yeah, so there's a few parts to it. So we have a community. So we have over, I think, about 3,200 female founders globally within our
Mhm.
community. And they are all early stage. So they are from pre seed through Series A founders. And so they have a place that they can come and they
Yep.
can talk to other founders, they can share knowledge. They're incredibly generous, our founders. And so they share knowledge, share opportunities. make connections for one another, open doors. So effectively, a bit like the old boys network, we're building a new network of female entrepreneurs across the globe, supporting one another, but critically opening up their networks to one another, because that's what we need to succeed. So there's a community aspect of it, which is really important. And then we run a series of accelerator programs. So we have our flagship is investment readiness. So that is for pre-seed and seed stage businesses, and we teach them how to raise investment from angels and VCs.
Got it.
And we've successfully helped our startups raise, I think now over 180 million, which is incredible. Our success rate for our founders is incredibly high. So just out there in the world, less than 3% of venture capital goes to women-led businesses, which is
crazy.
Pathetic. Tiny fraction. But 70% of our graduates successfully raise investment. So we are having a really, really good impact at a kind of at a grassroots level.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to scale. So we're basically trying to unlock the biggest hurdle to women building these type of businesses, these venture scale businesses, category defining businesses. And that is getting a good amount of investment into their hands.
The funding, yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. And this kind of leads me into my next question. So if you could give one piece of advice to female founders in general, what would it be?
Can I do two? I know it's tricky. Sure. Right. I'll be quick on them though. So the first one is you're going to be scrutinized more. So you have to be better and better prepared. And by that, I mean, your deck needs to be better and it has to have an incredibly commercial proposition. The feedback that a lot of investors give to female founders is that their value proposition, what they're selling, what they say that they're doing, is not commercial enough. And part of the reason for that is that most female founders I know are not just solving a commercial problem, they're actually solving a problem that also has massive societal benefits or is like for good in some way. But sometimes the way that that is expressed in the deck makes it feel like it is more of a philanthropic or charitable or non-commercial proposition.
Okay.
And so in our programs, we focus really strongly on making sure that the commercials shine through and that it is very, very clear to investors that this business is properly venture scale. It can be capable of growing to the size that a VC would want in order to back it. So the commercial aspect is super, super important. And then to my mind, the second most important thing is you have to really build out the scaffolding around you as a female founder. So you have to have a really, really supportive network around you, because it is going to be harder for you at most of these stages. And so you need to have people like in your camp to support you. You need to surround yourself with other founders because they're the only other people who understand what you're going through.
Definitely. I love those two pieces of advice. I really love that. And now we've entered the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. Yeah. So I want to know where you're zagging and everyone else is zigging. So in your prep questions, you mentioned turning down a job working for Google. So tell us about that. What happened there?
Yeah, so I had quite a cool job. I was working in the fashion industry, but it was a chaotic job. And it was basically for a startup scale-up, like a fashion PR agency. And I was learning so much in that job and doing so many different things and basically getting to do all sorts of entrepreneurial things alongside being a lawyer, that when I got approached to join Google, and it was just on a contractor role to start with, but I got approached to join them and to work in their Google Maps team. And I met them and I really liked them. And obviously, like, it's Google.
Yeah,
right?
it's Google.
And this was back in about, I don't know, 2009, around 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And so they were like, yeah, do you want to come and work on Google Maps? And you'll be helping us speak to different countries to get licensing for their
Mm-hmm.
maps so that we can
Right.
actually build out Google Maps fully.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, it was in certain countries, but it
Mm-hmm.
hadn't mapped everywhere. Like, it feels weird to us now because we rely on it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
of course.
But it wasn't fully built. And in order to be able to build it out, you had to actually go to different countries, or maybe like even municipalities, and say to them, hey, can you give us your maps in whatever
Mm-hmm.
format you've got so that we can digitize them? And you had to
Yeah.
license that in. And honestly, I just thought that would be really boring. I thought it'd be a really boring thing to do
Mm-hmm.
compared to what I was doing. And so I turned it down. I think I turned it down twice. Like,
Oh, they
it's based in
offered
a company.
twice
I
and
think they
then you
offered
turned it down
twice, and I
twice.
turned it down
Wow.
twice. And I don't regret turning it down, because the work that I was doing at this other company, I got to do
Mm-hmm.
everything. I learned how to financially model a business. I learned how to raise investment. Like, the stuff that I experienced and that I
Mm-hmm.
was able to practice was so broad and so interesting and so useful that I don't regret it. However, I really, really regret not having Google on my CV because
Yeah.
I think it would have opened so many doors. And from an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial perspective, had I had Google on my CV, I think it would have counted for something. Like when I was
Mm-hmm.
raising money, when I'm out there,
Right.
I think being a Zoogler carries an awful lot of weight.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I don't regret it for the subject matter. I do regret it for the credentials. Massively.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really interesting. And now it's story time. So I want to know about your glamorous 20s, is how I put it. But yeah, what happened there? So what was that?
Okay, so the same company. So I've been incredibly fortunate, I think, in my career. Like, I have done, through no real design of my own, I've done some pretty cool things. I've just been
Mm-hmm.
very, very lucky at some of the stuff that I've got to do. So yeah, in my late 20s and early 30s, I worked in fashion, and I got to work backstage at a load of the fashion shows. So when you're a lawyer, what tends to happen is people think of your personality as being a bit strict,
Mm-hmm.
and that you
Bossy.
can, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you are bossy, you can hold your own, you can be assertive. And so what that translates to at a fashion show generally is
Yeah.
that you're basically like the bouncer.
Oh,
So I was like backstage bouncer at most of the fashion shows. So London
lovely.
Fashion Week is chaotic. Um, and everybody is running around between shows. So the models basically, like, and everything runs late. So the models finish up one show and then they have to like get in a car and go to the
Yeah.
next show, and they're always running in, and they've got like mad hair from one show and like a ton of makeup that has to all come off. And what happens backstage is you've got lots of people trying to get in.
Yeah.
And so you are basically the bouncer on the door backstage with a clipboard, deciding who is allowed to come in and out. And you've got
Okay.
photographers coming in, and you have to basically say to the photographers, no, you cannot take photos of these half-naked models. You have to wait until they're dressed. So you're basically like the policewoman
Yeah.
backstage. But it's pretty cool. So I got to do a ton of fashion shows. We did a ton of celebrity parties. So I got to I partied with Jay-Z and Noel Gallagher from Oasis. I went to Gerard Butler's birthday party. He didn't want me at his birthday party. I said happy birthday to him. He was entirely unimpressed at this random woman just saying happy birthday to him. So it was all quite surreal, quite fun, quite crazy, but you always still have the awareness that as the lawyer, you
Yeah.
probably have to maintain a level of professionalism and a level of
Probably, yes.
seriousness, or at least you got to try. Like, you can't be as wild and crazy as the
Yeah.
other people. You've got
Yeah.
to try and just about keep a lid on it. But yeah, it was fun. It was a fun kind of like 6 years of hanging out in that world, and it is every bit as bonkers as it looks from the outside. So somebody said to me the other day, it was like, is it like Devil Wears Prada? And I was like, it is exactly like Devil Wears Prada. Like, you'll be working with celebrities, and like, and they'll be doing ad campaigns. And so
Yeah.
every celebrity will have a rider, right? And the rider is the list of things that they must have in their dressing room or whatever it is.
Oh,
So
okay.
their special list of things that they want.
Okay.
And honest to God, like if I wasn't under confidentiality, I could write the most incredible book
Mm-hmm.
just about
Just about
celebrity
the
riders
random things
and the
that they ask for.
crazy things.
Wow.
So like, you know, you're a private jet where a very, very well-known actress on a private jet
Mm-hmm.
specifies the exact type of cheeses
Oh,
that she would like on her cheese board. She's not going to
okay.
eat that. That woman has not eaten since 1998, right? There's no way that woman has eaten a piece of cheese. Not a morsel of cheese has passed her
But
lips.
she needs the
However,
particular type.
the rider
Okay.
will specify the cheeses. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds honestly very chaotic, but also very exciting.
It's pretty cool.
But thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. And now we're coming, sadly, to the end of the podcast. But I do have 3 final questions for you, which are, so imagine it's 2035, so in 10 years' time. What does your life look like? Where are we?
Okay. I have no idea. So I
Fair.
have time. I have time blindness. I can't remember the past easily
Okay.
or project into the future. So I am effectively the embodiment of enlightenment because I can only live in the now. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know where I'm going to be. Like I feel that we are in one of those kind of quantum leap phases where AI is just going to accelerate a ton of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm 47 now.
Yeah.
So in 10 years' time, I'm 57. So I'm
Yeah.
getting towards what would typically be kind of the latter stage of your career, right? Let's be frank.
I guess so, yeah.
But exactly, you guess so. But now we don't know. Now we actually can't easily predict how
Mm-hmm.
these technological changes are going to impact our careers, our health.
Yeah.
So you know, a lot of people have fear around, is AI going to take away the jobs? Like, are we all going to be semi-retired much earlier than we think? And therefore, what do humans do with their time? But equally, it's how does this impact things around longevity and health spans and all of those things that, unfortunately, as you do get to my age, you start thinking about. Like, you are a little bit more confronted with your own mortality at this age. And you do start thinking about, what do I need to do to ensure that the later years for me, you know, for me 10, 20, 30 years from now, how do I still keep my health?
Yeah.
So I think the fascinating bit is going to be, like, how does AI impact work careers?
Yeah.
What humans do with our time? And then does it help us with better health outcomes and therefore longevity? Because right now I'm thinking, if I live till 75, 80, perfect for me. That's enough. But our health, are we going to see such health improvements that actually I'm going to be eyeballing living to 110? In which case,
this is a good
that's
point,
a whole
actually,
other proposition.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. The next question is, how can listeners follow along with your journey?
Okay, so I'm actually off most social media. So I'm only really on. So LinkedIn is the best way to contact me. And then anyone who's interested in Hive, the best way is, so hivefounders.net is where you can join our community. So it's open to all female founders, wherever you are in the world, whatever stage you're at in your journey, from just having an idea or thinking that you might want to start your own business, all the way through. We've got, you know, serial entrepreneurs in the community that have raised hundreds of millions and doing incredible things. So it's open to everybody. And we also do things like every 2 weeks we host a pitch clinic. So it's completely free. So people can go onto Eventbrite, just type in Hive Founders and find our pitch clinics, and you can come and listen to people pitching. And you can also come and practice your investor pitch and get feedback from us. So for anyone who's interested in that side of things, and then anyone who needs any legal help, they can find us at Garfield Smith. As you said, it's quite a distinctive name, so you'll be able to find us quite easily and get in touch with us that way.
Awesome. And then last question is, how can listeners be useful to you? So what can they do for you?
They can. Okay, so if you have any purchasing power within your organization, I would love to see more people pledge to make sure that procurement includes businesses led by female founders, right? So to be able to have a mandate where you are actually looking at where you're sourcing your software, where you're sourcing your services, and trying to make sure that your procurement processes include buying from female founders. Because if I think about the problems we solved, we need to get more money into the hands of these women-led businesses. And
Right.
some of that is investment, but some of that actually is just revenue. It's just people buying their products and services. And so if you are in a purchasing position, you can do that. Then the other side of it is I want to see more women and allies actively investing in women-led businesses. And so on the back of Hive Founders, we have an angel group called Womankind Ventures, where angel investors we share details of the top performing companies that come through our investment readiness program, and we give people the opportunity to invest into those companies. So anyone who's an angel investor or interested in becoming an angel investor can look up Womankind Ventures and get involved that way.
Lovely. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really look forward to following along with your journey and obviously Hive Founders' journey. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan. That was great.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Do consider leaving a review as it helps the podcast tremendously.